Alrighty, fellas, another day in PokeMMO, another forum post by an admin slash dev that might change the future of the game. Okay, this is once again talking about one of the most controversial things in PokeMMO now, Darkrai being temporary. Okay, the new legendary added to the game, only available for a certain number of time. Whether you are for it, against it, you know, both sides are very valid. Let's talk about what the dev has to say. We opted to implement Darkrai as a temporary summon as the alternative to not implementing Uber Legendaries. This is super true. It was either don't have Ubers or have them for an hour once a week, right? Due to the power gap between them and their non-legendary alternatives, in a game where team building is so important, having a handful of options that are strictly better than the rest negatively impacts creativity and the variety of species which are effective enough in their roles to be considered good. This doesn't apply to PvP either. It also applies to PvE. A lot of people seem to forget this. In PvE, where you have challenges, the red refight, gym reruns, all this stuff, right? It matters a ton, right? So let's continue on. Permanently making the strongest legendaries available also creates a problem in which we must choose between either balancing difficult content around them, which makes the game much harder for players who aren't using them, or not doing that and making the game much easier for players who do have the legendaries, Uber Legendaries. Both of these outcomes are bad, and they both centralize optimal play around those Uber Legendary species. The limited availability of summoned legendaries addresses these issues, as they can't simply replace normal Pokemon. They can't be used to farm a repeatable boss for the entire duration of an event, and you are limited to one active at a time. Including them in the game at all also makes a complete dex possible further down the line once everything has been implemented. While Darkrai may not be the most egregious Uber, the future will be expanded upon over time to include the other legendaries deemed too overwhelmingly powerful, such as ZEKROM. This is kind of an interesting and decent confirmation that they seemingly want to add ZEKROM as a summonable legendary and a usable Pokemon in the future. We're open to tweaking how the system works. This is very important. They're open to feedback. They're open to critique. Just don't go scream at them and yell at them. If you say, hey, we like to see some more different, offer the alternatives and offer the changes and critique and say why it's good, why it's bad, etc. Don't just go scream at the devs. We already have more functionality and gameplay relevance planned for them in the future, but we do not want permanent Uber Legendaries in the game and won't be changing this stance. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I think all this is very, very reasonable. Whether you can feel free to, even though they won't be changing the stance, feel free to disagree with the devs. That's totally okay. Just keep that in mind whenever discussing things, right? I think all of this is super reasonable, makes a lot of sense. That's all. This has been I totally agree with them personally, but obviously feel free to disagree. This has been my personal stance on the matter as well. So I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, just cool to see more news like this happening every day in PokeMMO. Like this video if you enjoyed it, dislike if not, subscribe for more PokeMMO news every single day, and I'll see you guys later. Peace, Areno.